Hello, hello, and welcome to Inner Work for Greater Good. My name is Emily Eldridge. I'm with Change Light, the founder and CEO, as well as the creator of the Change Light system, where we do inner work to accelerate your power to make a difference, to shine your brightest light, to be the best presence you can possibly be for yourself and for the world around you. So today's topic is, are you too much? Oh boy. Let's just say that I have dealt with this a lot within myself, and I've also dealt with this a lot with my clients. There's this feeling of being too much. There's this fear of being too much. In my experience, a lot of times that is a feeling that people have because they were made to feel that way as children, because somebody told them that they're being to fill in the blank. So it can be too loud, too emotional, too obnoxious, trying too hard to get attention. That was something I got all the time when I was a kid. I was told, stop trying to get attention. Like you're too annoying. You're, or too much energy. You're just too much. So tune into yourself and see if this is something of which you've been accused or criticized, or been told that that's what you are, or made to feel that you're too much of something. I wouldn't be surprised. Let me put it this way. I will just say that in my experience, the people who've come to me, at least, and this applies to me as well, who've come to me with this feeling and this sense of insecurity about, or even anger about being told that they're too much of something. It's usually like too emotional. Obviously, I work with people's emotions, so a lot of times I get a lot of clients where that's a thing where it's like, well, they were told they're too emotional, or they're too sensitive, or they're hypersensitive, or overreacting, overreactionary or reactive, or also like too much in terms of like your personality. Something about your personality is too much. I can tell you for myself that I was told that a lot growing up, or at least made to feel that way. And so I did a lot over the years of tamping down, trying to reduce, trying not to show all of that, ultimately I ended up dimming my own light. And it wasn't until and I think I shared this, I don't know, on a previous episode, but until I read the line of, might have been the last episode where I read the line of, there is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others don't feel insecure around you, is that what I realized when I read that is that I've been shrinking and dimming my light because basically my light, my presence, my whatever, my certain behaviors, that triggered the other people's insecurity. And so they would then lash at me and say, well, you're being too much, or it made them uncomfortable, like I was being inappropriate. And I will totally own that. Sometimes as a kid, I wasn't always appropriate. Not in a sort of like crazy, awful, like sexual way or something like that. I mean, just generally, like maybe I was kind of loud in a moment when it should have been quieter, or maybe I was laughing in a moment when it would have been more appropriate to be quiet and calm and morose. Okay, but the point is, though, that was a constant message in my upbringing, and it might have been in yours as well, in various different forms. So the question of, are you too much, I think, is an important one, especially for those of us who carry that fear, and especially if it's caused us, if that fear of being too much, or thinking that we're too much, or being told that we're too much, is causing us to dim our light. As you know, if you've seen my previous episodes, I am all about shining your light. I am all about being the most radiant, bright person and presence you can possibly be, whatever that looks like for you, right? You don't have to be on stage and screen, being like that. It's whatever that feels like, when you really feel like you're in your power and you're shining your own truth and light. It's whatever that feels like for you, however that shows up for you. So it may show up very differently for me than it does for you. But the point is that I think that if that fear is causing you to tamp down on your own light, to dim your light, to darken it, to shrink, to quote that line again, to shrink so that others don't feel insecure or uncomfortable or whatever, right? Fill in the blank. Let's play Mad Libs here, right? Shrink so that others don't feel blank around you. Fill in the blank. To fill in the blank. So whatever that is for you, fill in those blanks for yourself and decide, am I doing that? Am I shrinking? Am I dimming my light? And just notice what those two blank, what comes after, two in this situation. What is that for you? So for me, it's too emotional. For me, it's too loud, too much singing, trying too hard to get attention, etc. I was derided for that a lot. But in my case, I'll just say what was interesting, and I will get into like whether you're too much or like what even to do with that. But I just want to share a quick little story too that kind of popped into my head right before doing the show, which was what made me think about this. Is I was sharing with a group of people recently, people with who I really trust, that I was constantly derided and denigrated for, stop trying to get attention. Basically, you're too much, you're too loud, you're too energetic, you're too this. And so I was constantly, I felt as a child hammered on it, like just tamp down, calm down, just get smaller, because your bigness is making us uncomfortable. And so I said how it was interesting because something happened, and I was in this group of people and I was singing, but I was singing while other people were having conversation, but I wasn't trying to intrude on their conversation. I was just like enjoying a song. I was singing it. And then at some point they stopped, and one person said, I like, apparently there was a comment that it was like, I guess Emily wants us to pay attention to her. And I said in the moment, I said, that actually triggered me. I wasn't accusing at all. I just, I just have to notice that triggered me, because that's what I was constantly accused of growing up. Like, oh, you're just trying to get attention. And what was lovely about one of the other people said a little bit later on to me is, and I said, no, I promise I wasn't. I was just enjoying the music. I was just singing. And, and if anything, I was trying not to get in the way of your conversation. But what was lovely about what one person later said was, she said, so what if you were trying to get attention? Like, what's wrong with that? And I love that she even like brought that up as a possibility. Like, what if there's nothing wrong with that? So what if you were, you're not hurting anybody. And it was such a freeing thing for me. And I actually need to tell this person that it was really helpful, because I thought, yeah, like, why am I the worst person in the world if that's what I was doing, which I know that's not what I was doing. But even if I were, why is that so awful? So, again, with your fill in the blanks, too loud, too annoying, too sensitive, too whatever. Okay, so what if I'm emotional? Okay, so what if I'm loud in this moment? Okay, so what if I'm not trying to hurt anybody, then okay. And so that was a really wonderful thing for me, took away some of that sting that I carried for so long about, basically making it like it's the worst thing in the world for you to want any attention for yourself. Like, that was terrible. And so when she said, well, so what if you were? It was like, yeah, what if I was? Like, I'm not hurting anybody. What if I did want to be heard in my singing? What if I did want something from that moment? Okay, big deal. So that's all by way of saying that was a nice reminder for me about, whatever the too is, too much to this, so what, right? So what if some other people think that you're too emotional, or you're too loud, or you're too aggressive, or you're too what have you? It's okay. In my opinion, is I would say it's okay as long as you're not hurting anybody, right? I mean, sometimes there is too aggressive, sometimes there is too loud, sometimes there is too emotional if your emotions are actively hurting other people, like trying to hurt other people, or if it's having a really negative effect, when in fact you could actually be processing your own emotions rather than, let's say, lashing out at other people. Okay, just giving some examples. And so that made me think about, when we think about something, if you're really questioning, like, am I too much? And when is some behavior too much? And here's what it broke down into for me, is I always like to look at what's fueling the behaviors, okay? So in that moment, let's say, when I was singing, what was fueling my behaviors? What was fueling my behaviors was I loved the song, and I felt like singing. I mean, it was like, really, it was one of my favorite songs ever. And I wanted to sing, and I wanted to really sing. And I was trying to be respectful of the people in the front of me who were having a conversation. But I also just really, I was trying to do both. It's like, enjoy the song and enjoy my singing of the song, but at the same time, be respectful of them. And the point is, what was fueling that was nothing negative on my part. If anything, I was trying really hard to honor the situation while at the same time honoring my own desires in that moment that weren't hurting anybody. And so it's a matter of asking yourself, okay, so what is fueling my behaviors? You know, is it insecurity? Is it fears? Is it, trying to, change someone else's behavior? Is it trying to too hard to protect myself? In other words, you look at what maybe when you've been taught that you're too much of something, or you're made to feel that way, or someone says that, I would say just, okay, ask yourself, what is fueling this behavior? And I would say that in terms of, for me in that moment, okay, I'm going to be really honest. In that moment, as I'm sitting with it, what was fueling it for me was genuine, pure enjoyment and really wanting to just sing and not be worried about it, because I've been worried about it most of my whole life, because I've been shamed for singing and for enjoying singing. And so for me in that moment is, I just want to feel free to do this and not worry about it. And there was, I would acknowledge there was probably a small part of me that was like hoping that someone would be like, wow, you have a great voice. Okay. So I wanted maybe some attention from it, or maybe some like acknowledgement or some compliments. But if it didn't happen in that moment, that was okay. So I wouldn't say I was trying really hard to get that, but I was like, it would have felt nice. Okay. But sometimes we do have behaviors that are fueled by some kind of insecurity or negativity within us. And in that case, then I would say, if someone's saying or making you feel like you're too much, that might be good information to recognize maybe you're violating someone's boundaries. Maybe you are being, hurting someone with those behaviors, or maybe it's not appropriate for the moment. Okay, so I just want to just acknowledge that sometimes our behaviors can be causing us to behave in inappropriate ways. Or behave in ways that are actually hurtful, even if they're inadvertent, or to just have a negative effect in some way or another. And therefore, and then to look at what it is that's actually causing us to behave that way. And then I would say, heal the wounds that are fueling those behaviors. Heal the insecurities, heal the traumas, heal the fears, heal whatever's going on inside of you, so that the too much, what other people might call too much, isn't coming from a place of insecurity or fear, but is actually coming from a place of, and this is where I would say this is the healthy too much, coming from a place of joy, coming from a place of freedom, coming from a place of peace, coming from a place of shining your light, coming from a place of fearlessness. So that's where I would say there's the unhealthy too much, that it's a matter of parsing it out internally and going, where is this really coming from? Just receiving the feedback and being like, okay, maybe this is because of insecurities, or maybe this is because I am, I've got a lot of rage that I need to work on. But then if there's parts of it that really does have to do with your personal power and your light and your truth, and someone might be telling you in that moment, you're too much this, you're too much that, you know what? If it's coming from light, truth, power, joy, the purity, the pure essence of you, then I would say it's not too much and you're not too much. And so that's what I'm encouraging in a very wordy way, is to really, so many of us have been taught that we're too much, and to parse it out then internally and be like, how much of that is true? How much of it is other people who've diminished us because they're threatened by our light? And how much of it is because, well, maybe we've got some wounds that we need to heal to help us be more calm and whole and at peace within ourselves, so that we have healthy boundaries, so that we have healthy emotional states, so that, just again, fill in the blank there. So it's just something I want you to consider. I would say that in my experiences with my clients who have said that they've been accused of being too much of this or too much of that, that a lot of times that those accusations of too muchness, usually they've been accusations or criticisms of a part of the person that's actually a part of their true essence. That's actually a beautiful part of their power. So emotionality, you've heard me talk about how I've been accused of being too sensitive, too emotional, but actually I discovered by embracing my emotions, it turns out they're parts of my superpower. And then I'm able to work with them in a more healthy way. So that's one thing to recognize that, well, I was accused of being too much of this, but actually it was a reflection of their insecurity and my true power. And they're trying to whatever with my power, or their insecurity, projecting onto me, or whatever it was. Or the same thing with, like, when I was accused of trying to get too much attention. It's like, in my heart of hearts at the time when I was being accused of that as a child, I just genuinely felt like I was just being me. I was just being joyful. I wasn't trying to get attention. And so that's why it also hurts so much to be accused of that and to be maligned in that way, like have negative motivations and intentions projected onto me. And so that's what was really, really hurtful there. So anyway, it's a long way of saying, when it comes to, are you too much? If it's coming from your light, from your truth, from your power, it's not too much. Okay? It's something to look at within yourself, where you've been accused of being that way or made to feel that way, and how much of that is, insecurity, fears, whatever other things that might be going on within you, but how much of that could actually be from your truth and from your light, and how can you allow yourself to truly let go of those ideas of being too much of this or too much of that, or too this way or too that way, and really just embrace the truth, the light, the joy, the peace, and the presence of who you are. Oh, as always, I hope this has been helpful. Follow us at changelight.world. Come to changelight.world. Join the free community. Take the free course. We've got lots of great stuff for you there. We've also got a lot of good stuff coming up. All right. Mwah. I love you, and I will see you next week.